So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Welcome to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. Superhero Faces team with you, Noah, Brad, Kate, and Kelsey. And we're here to talk the season finale of season 1 of House of the Dragon. Now, if you're on here, you obviously know that we break down every episode of House of the Dragon. But did you also know that we have episodes on the entire season 1 of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, as well as Thor, Love and Thunder, and other MCU films? So make sure to check all that stuff out on our YouTube page, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcasting platforms. And even though the House of the Dragon season finale just aired, we'll continue to put out videos and create content, podcasts on MCU, DCEU, and what other nerdy stuff that you guys want to hear about. So make sure to hit subscribe, hit the little bell, and you can be notified when all of that stuff drops. But as always, here is your spoiler warning. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the season finale and really the season as a whole, potentially, for House of the Dragon. On this podcast, you will get our thoughts, our hot takes, and we might even get into our feels a little bit. But again, don't worry about getting anything ruined for you. We haven't read Fire and Blood, so nothing from future seasons will be ruined unless we're geniuses and we just predict things correctly. So that could happen. Who knows? Overall, yeah, right. Overall, I thought this was a really good episode, and I thought it was a satisfying conclusion to the opening season of the show. We knew that from episode 9, it was called the Green Council, and it focused primarily on Alicent and her Green faction, that this one would largely center around Rhaenyra and her Black Council. But when talking about this episode, which was titled The Black Queen, we have to start with that scene, which takes place over the skies of Storm's End. So guys, man, what were you thinking when we saw this? First of all, pretty ominous. What's his name? Luke lands there at Storm's End, thinking this is going to be not a big deal, just delivering a message to Boros Baratheon from his mom, and then he sees Vhagar. What was going through your head, Kate, when you saw Vhagar?
Oh shit. I was like, this is not going to be good. Little Luke, little baby Luke, this is bad. This is bad news.
Yo. When you see her, when he lands, and then, obviously it's very gray and it's rainy and it's dark, you see her head just, I'm like, this bitch is huge.
Yeah.
She's humongous. Like, she's big. Like, that she's the biggest dragon alive right now. But even any illustrations that we see on Twitter or whatever, it just does not put into perspective how big she is. And I'm sorry, if I see that and I'm him, I'm not thinking, oh, it's fine, I'm here as a messenger. It's Aemon's dragon. Like, it's not like that's up for debate. It's Aemon, who you guys have a rivalry, and she is oh my god, it's so crazy how big she is. I would turn right the fuck around and be like, sorry, mom, no one was home.
Yeah, Brad, if you landed there with your little baby dragon and you see that, you know what that means, just like Kelsey's saying, that implication. Well, what are you doing if you're in his shoes?
Well, it's funny, like I asked Kate, like literally, I'm like, yo, would he get like clowned if like he went back and was like, hey, so I got there, like,
yeah, not for me.
I'm like, oh, would they be like, oh yeah, you kind of did the right thing? So I was wondering that, but like, I do want to say, like, that scene was so badass and that moment was so badass. And I don't know if this was like done intentionally, but it kind of seemed like an homage to Jurassic Park. It reminded me of like the original Jurassic Park in '93 when the T-Rex comes through. And that's the first time you see like you see him like up against the Jeep, so you know how big he is. You hear that roar for the first time. It's raining. Granted, we're on Storm's End, so that's part of why it's right. But it just gave me flashbacks to that moment of like, holy shit, like this is really cool right now.
Yeah, and you just know things are most likely going to be bad already once you see the dragon. Before he walks in and sees anybody else, you kind of know what's going on here. But so Rhaenyra, we'll talk more about her, but she says she doesn't want to be the one to strike first in the war. She wants to make sure she's being smart. She wants to shore up her allies first. So she had the idea, or they had the idea that we'll send ravens, we'll go and just make sure we could get the alliances started. And Jacaerys, the older boy, says that no, it's more effective. We could get there faster with the dragons, and they'll take it more seriously, all these groups, if they see one of us coming and our dragons, right? So Jacaerys goes north. He's going to the Eyrie to treat with Jane Arryn, that's her name, Jane Arryn, and Cragen Stark at Winterfell, which is cool to just hear the word Winterfell and hear the word Stark again. That's very nice. And then Luke will go to Storm's End and treat with Boros Baratheon. And Rhaenyra's like, it's fine. You're kind of related to them. Rhaenys, what is Rhaenys to them? Her his aunt? Her aunt?
Yeah. No, like a great aunt.
Yeah, something like that. But so like, you have Baratheon blood through Rhaenys. And so then the question begs, well, if she is literally related to them, her mom is a Baratheon, why didn't she go there? Because that probably wouldn't have all happened if she. Anyway, it was funny when Rhaenyra made the kids brought out a Bible for them to like.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Stupid as shit.
That was so funny.
Not going in there to scrap anybody. Like, what is? I don't know. Maybe she did that like subconsciously to make them feel more badass than they were. Like, no kicking ass, guys. And they're like, all right.
These like little pussies that can't do anything.
Jace did. The Luke didn't. He was like scared, but Jacaerys was like pretty ready to like throw some fists.
Yeah,
okay, but neither of them should be ready to throw some fists. That's because true. As we've seen time and time again, they get their ass whooped, and this time one of them got their ass chomped. And
they're not about that life for sure. But so he walks in, and Aemon's just standing there looking like a pirate, looking like what is it? Handsome Squidward with the cheekbones and the pirate. And he's just kind of there like watching and like just taunting from afar, kind of. And this Boros Baratheon, this guy's a dick, right? Yeah. And he's like, well, he gives him the thing, the scroll or whatever. And then he's mad that his maester is not there to read it to him. Like he just can't read. And there was a really funny meme that I saw actually that it was like, well, do you guys know the story of what Leah Michele? You know who that is? Yeah. How like there's a whole funny thing, Brad. You don't know who Leah Michele is, right?
No idea.
I didn't either, but I guess she was in Glee and she's on Broadway or something like that. But there's a whole internet thing where she's illiterate, she can't read, and like I don't think that's actually true, but like it's a whole thing, and there's all this like a podcast about it, there's all these articles about how she can't read, and so it's become a meme of like when people can't read, just like posting a picture of her face. So it's like the meme was in this one was like, oh, this is Boros Baratheon when Luke got there, and it was just a picture of Leah Michele, which was funny. But then he kind of gets big and he's like, you come to me with empty hands? Go home, pup. Tell your mother that the Lord of Storm's End is not some dog she can whistle up and at need and set against her foes. And you just know it's all bad there. Yeah. But then Aemon got out of pocket. Like, Kelsey, what do you think about the sapphire in his eye when he took off the eye patch? And you're like, God damn.
So I couldn't tell exactly what it was. But bro, come on. Like, it's been so long. I know you lost your eye, but how is that the only thing that you talk about? And clearly Luke he's small. Like, how old is Luke in this? Still like 8 or 9?
14,
like he's
14, I think.
Oh, he's 14?
Didn't they say that?
I'm
sorry.
Has that much time passed? How much time has really passed? Like 6 years, maybe?
Since what?
Since he got his eye taken out.
I mean, he was a little like the actor. He looks like 40 years passed between the change of like young, young Aemon to this Aemon.
But isn't he supposed to still be a teenager in this? Which is like weird casting, I get, but I think he's still a teenager.
Yeah, you might be right.
So I mean, not that much time has really passed. It just seems like that way to us because they went from like a kid actor to like a grown ass adult. Like
he does look like a especially in comparison to Luke, who looks like a little kid.
Yeah.
And like, it's
Right. It makes him out to be way more of a bully. It's like, why is this 30-year-old man picking on this 12-year-old kid? Like,
it kind of is like
I
that.
don't think it's like really that way.
Yeah. And I feel like Luke was already berated by Baratheon. I mean, he comes there as a messenger. Obviously, he was a little late. Whatever, we're never shown what Rhaenyra has in her my foster puppy just peed in the kennel. That's great. So Storm's End over here as well. We're never shown exactly what Rhaenyra puts in the message. It's just kind of hinted at of, oh, she's telling me that I have to obey her, or obey my word that I said like however long ago and all this stuff, but she doesn't even give me gifts or whatever. He is definitely you can see, what's the name of Baratheon that Cersei's married to? What is it?
Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, you can definitely see Robert Baratheon in him. He's just egotistical. He's kind of a bully. He's kind of an idiot. Obviously, he can't read. So I just think it would be really interesting. I wish we would have seen what she wrote in that little scroll, because who knows, he could just be putting on a whole show. But Luke was just taking L's left and right, and then Aemon comes and pretends like he's gonna fight him, and then he takes out his sword, and you just know, you're like, come on, like that shit's not gonna happen. That scene was a little corny to me. It just was a little over dramatic in my mind. I just feel like Aemon had already had such a huge overpowering over him that it was a little unnecessary. But
this is how wild that show is. I knew there was no way this was gonna happen, but that show is so wild. There was a moment, because like you guys have both said, we don't read what's on that scroll. When the maester like kind of reads it, and he kind of like acts like a little weird about it, and he like leans in and whispers, I was like, yo, what if that scroll says like, kill this kid, he sucks? Like, I'm like, that would be crazy.
What? Why would she do that to her son?
I don't know, because that would be a wild ass thing to happen that no one would.
She would not do that. She loves him.
Well, no, but like maybe Damon like intercepted it and like he wrote his own little message like, yo,
this is not my kid. This kid's a pussy. Like,
yeah, I'm sick of this strong ass kid being around the household. Like, eliminate him.
Stop dunking on Luke, you guys. I love him.
So I will say that I'm tired of them insulting him, calling him strong boys. Like we totally get it. Like that's not even a good insult. Like we get it, all that. But I mean, he went 0 to 100 really quickly, where he was just sitting there like, just doing nothing, Zoolandering, and then all of a sudden he just like lost his shit. And he took off the eye patch. He put the sapphire in his eye, which looked really cool. I'm like, just leave the eye patch off because you look like a badass. But then he threw his knife to him and he's like, you better cut your own eye out or I'll take it, bastard. I was like, woo, goodness. And then he, what's his name, runs away. Luke, he gets scared and he gets shuttled outside because Baratheon's like, not up in here. Not up in here. You're not gonna be doing that in here.
Not my house.
And so then what's his name, in a dramatic display, Aemond picks up his dagger that's on the ground and starts like flipping it around all like crazy. I'm like, all right, we get it. This guy, he's
Yes.
But man, then you just
really
know
feel they overdo it with the like bastard thing, like, because I don't think, because in Game of Thrones that was such a big deal that I don't ever feel that way. Like Jon Snow was constantly everything when he meets, I'm Jon Snow. Oh, a bastard. I'm like, God, like there are other parts to him.
That's such a different circumstance. This is exactly why Vaemon lost his head, was because Jon Snow is a Snow for a reason. He's not a Stark. That he is out a legitimate bastard and the family claims him as a bastard. Well, these kids are named Targaryens. Like, it doesn't matter.
Well, they're Valyrians actually, but yeah, same deal. They are. No. Yes, they are.
They don't have the name Targaryen.
It's just Jacaerys and Lucerys.
Oh yeah,
and Joffrey Valerian. But
once they get onto the throne, they would be Targaryen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that is the difference. Is like Jon is like acknowledged. Like no one's like going to bat for John and being like, he's not a bastard. How dare you?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, kind of.
Well, to be honest, it's not that he calls him a bastard. Like I actually like when they call the kids bastard. It's more just like when they insult him by calling them strong boy. Like it just okay, all right, we get it kind of thing. I don't know. That's annoying to me. But let me ask. I mean, the question that I really had throughout this entire thing, and we haven't even gotten to the real meat of the scene, no pun intended. But you know, what do you think? What was Aemond trying to do here? Like, and Brad, I'll pose to you first. What was his goal in everything he was doing to Luke?
I think it was just like personal, like ego vendetta. I don't know. I mean, the eye thing, I don't know if he was actually going to let him go through with that. I knew when he was in the whole time they were in the sky and the dragons were chasing one another. I knew, I'm like, he's just messing with them. He's teasing them. Like, I never thought like, he wants to go. I didn't get that vibe. But then in retrospect, when thinking about the episode, I'm like, like, and yeah, we'll get more into it because I got like a lot of stuff on like his intentions and stuff. But like, I really don't think he, at the time, like meant to kill him, obviously. But then I still like was like, yeah, but he was still cool with him like taking out his own eye with a knife. Like that's brutal. Like that. Even if people are like, oh, and you see the memes and stuff like, dude, it was a practical joke. It was a practical joke. I'm like, yeah, but I do think like, he legitimately wanted him to like pierce out his eyeball. So like, this wasn't like, man, I was just ribbing you for when we were kids, remember? Like, so but I think, that was mainly his thing is like, oh, I've got a personal beef with all these kids who used to pick on me. I can't get a revenge on my brother, so I'll take it on you guys more.
Yeah, but it's not that he picked on him. It's he sliced his eye out. It's not that he's getting revenge for making fun of him.
As a kid, like they gave him the pig, like they were all in on that joke together kind of thing. Like, I don't think they really showed us maybe as much of the bullying when he was a kid as there might have been. I think they gave us like one or two scenes to give us the idea of like, oh, as you guys can see, he's like kind of picked on for not knowing how to ride a dragon. But I'm sure that was that kid's like whole childhood. Like that was a way bigger part of like his identity growing up. So I'm sure now that he has like the quote unquote biggest, baddest dragon, he feels like the biggest, baddest dude and is like, hey, remember, it's like the guy goes back to a high school reunion thinking he's hot shit now and wants to like belittle everybody. So I think that's like his intent, especially like we said, like he's not as old as the actor looks. So he is still a kid, like doing dumb kid things.
I guess. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand where he's coming from about the eye because he literally had he literally had like a huge rock in his hand about to like crush the skull of his cousin. Like, so Luke's brother. So, and he was literally just he literally was just defending him in that moment, regardless of if you're bullied or not. Like, that's very extreme. But it's hard for me to feel like Aemond was just fucking around with Luke on this dragon who is literally like smaller than the size of its mouth. Like, there's no way. There's so many times that he could have stopped. Like when Luke goes into the crevice and Vhagar can't fit in there, Aemond is visibly pissed. Like, he's mad that he like was able to go in there and they can't go in there. When all that stuff happened in the hall, Aemond is pissed. Like, he's not doing stuff of like doing the banter or doing the like, stare down of like, ha ha ha, like I'm above you, whatever. Like, this is coming from a real place of hate, a real place of like something is going down. So regardless of how they framed it in this show, I mean, I think they did that for dramatic effect, but I did learn some stuff on Twitter about what had truly happened in the books already. Like Noah mentioned, we hadn't read the books yet. Huh?
Stay off the Twitter.
No, I did it after, okay? At Lore Master. So apparently in the books, Luke is already blinded by Aemond once he's leaving Storm End. So Aemond blinds Luke and then chases him on his dragon with Vhagar. And clearly there's intent to kill. In the show, they show it a different way. And it's so funny and also kind of a little corny in my mind where they're like, no, listen to me, I'm your master, blah blah blah, you know, when the other dragon like comes and puts the fire and it's like, no, listen to me, and then right after that the Aemon is like, no, Vhagar, listen to me, and it's just I don't know, it was a little corny, but that whole scene
But
was
doesn't that make it without a shadow of a doubt? Like, regardless of it, if you think it was executed well, like he didn't mean to kill him. Like if he's telling his dragon, like, listen to me, stop.
Well-
Like he's not doing that messing around.
So
okay,
they
but
say
if you
that
know your dragon, like you can't, if you know that you can't fully control your dragon and you let it get to that point, it doesn't matter.
That's we'll talk about that. I have a different theory about that. What were you gonna say, Noah?
so they say that when a person bonds with the dragon, like they share, the dragon can sense the feelings of the person and understands kind of the whole mental and emotional state of that person. And I agree with you, Kelsey. Like he fully hates Luke, hates for what he did. And like, I didn't think any of it was because of the teasing from the kid. I thought literally it was going to be an eye for an eye and fuck you, little kid. Like, you know, you're a pussy. I'm superior to you. I want to threaten you. I want to intimidate you. But I mean, I thought until the very end where he's like, no, no, Aemon. I thought the whole time he was trying to kill him. Where do you land on this, Kate?
So I don't think he was trying to kill him. Like, I don't think that was his intent. I do think that you guys are right in that, like, he definitely hates him and has this huge grudge that he will not let go of, which, I mean, yeah, he lost an eye. Like, that's a big deal.
But what was his end game? Like, if he wasn't trying to kill him, what was his end game?
Yeah, where are you going to
intimidate him?
Scare him, make him pee himself. Like kids are
But
mean.
how-
Like kids are.
But he
I'm
didn't
not
accomplish that
belittling it.
already.
Yeah, exactly. Like the first 20 minutes of that chase, or like, that's what I'm saying is like, there's so many times that he could have stopped. And truly, Luke, rightfully so, is scared for his life. Like, you know, his dragon is flying crazy. Like he's trying to do some like seal maneuvers that like you would see them do like against a great white, like, you know, doing all these things to try to outmaneuver this huge dragon. And he's truly scared for his life. So that little baby dragon, who's also like, you know, a child, like it's not hundreds of years old, like Vhagar, is sensing that. So of course they're like, when it comes up and does the fire thing, I don't really blame it for that. But like Vhagar just got pissed and was probably feeling, yeah, that hatred for Luke. I just,
But
Yeah,
the argument that like Aemon should get over it, if someone literally scarred your face for life, you would get over that in a few. You wouldn't always be like, yo, I'm gonna fuck with this person every opportunity I get.
Well,
Yeah,
he
but
knows
the
that, like,
last
he has
time
to know
we
that the
see-
war is starting. Like the
Yes,
war, there is a
exactly.
war against that side. So that's why I was
Exactly.
thinking like it wasn't just like a playful thing. These two sides are at war together, and
not
he
yet. They're
hates them.
not at war yet.
Yeah, but I mean they are, but neither one has like shed the first blood. But like they are at war. When they crowned Aegon,
I
they
don't
knew
think
exactly what they
Aemon
were
wants to be the first one to shed blood.
But he is.
Sure,
And
but sure, but like then what are you doing? Like you hate
Yeah,
this guy
exactly.
and they're at war, like, and you're doing that. I mean, if his goal was just to threaten him, like throwing the dagger saying, cut your own eye out right now, or I will take it from you. I'm gonna give it as a present to my mother, and then making him run away scared and run back home, like that is accomplish your goal. Like that whole
Yeah.
chase didn't even.
I'm not saying what he did was smart in any
Yeah.
way. I'm just saying I get where he's. I don't think it's like stupid or ridiculous. Like, yo, that came out of nowhere. Like he was really mad about that and like let his emotions take over.
Oh, no,
like
no, no.
everything he did, I could understand. But yeah, I totally agree with you guys. It was stupid and he fucked and he just made life a lot harder on his family. Like none of it in my mind is like was a good move, but like at least I understand from a writing perspective of like, okay, I get why he felt that way and why he did that, and it just went too far.
I guess just one last thing is it seems that Luke has such a great grasp of I'm here as a messenger. I did my duty, and like in this realm, you know, there's supposed to be rules about like you're not supposed to do anything to messengers. And he understands like the ramifications of all this and that we're teetering on the edge of war. One of Aemon's biggest things that we see in all these episodes is that he truly is a historian. He truly is he thinks that he is rightful to be the next heir, like the next king. So he really dedicates his life to that. He has to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are going to be, no matter what happens, like even him cutting an eye out, I think would be wild and would be like an act of like, you know, Daemon and Rhaenyra are gonna like do some shit. But I just don't believe it. Like, I don't know. For someone like him, and they set him up the way that they do, I just don't believe that in just a moment. You know how far Vhagar looked far as hell. He had to hike like 3 miles to go even ride him. Like he didn't like calm down in that 3 miles.
So I do think it's cool though how it shows that the dragons, like they're not slaves of the people that ride them. Like they have their own intentions. And I mean, you kind of saw it with Vhagar already, where Laena had to tell it Dracarys like 3 different times before she actually did it. Like these dragons have a mind of their own. And I think that what set Vhagar off finally was when Arax also disobeyed and shot fire. But like, even before that, it was Vhagar, she was snapping at Arax and all that. And so, yeah, it's, I don't know, but that one scene when they show Arax flying with Luke and it's just so small, and then you see the whole shadow above, it was unbelievable. And it really just shows the scope of the size difference. And just, it was so cool to see.
It was like a horror movie. I was like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
It reminds me up there with Daenerys when Drogon opens, you know, his wings behind her in that last episode.
Yeah.
Like of one of those, like I'm like, yo, this is one of the iconic moments of like Game of Thrones lore. I'm like, that's gotta be one of the top 10 like images.
Yeah.
Legit, yeah. And then when she just chomps down on him, like literally it's just like a tiny little like chomp, and then it was just into bits and pieces.
There's like pieces flying down. I was like,
Yeah.
Okay, that is unnecessary. We don't need to see that.
Seriously. And like she's so big, and I can't imagine that flame would be that big, like, or she would even notice it. I feel like that would be like a tiny little like pinprick to her. Like she would
pissed
even
her
know.
off. Yeah,
It didn't seem to do any damage. Like,
there was nothing that
Yeah.
Arax was going to do, but I think that because it's smaller and it's able to be quicker and all that, like if Arax wasn't stupid and antagonized, like they probably could have gotten away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
man.
know, it's so sad. But to your point, Noah, that's a great point of like they waited to the very end for them to show like Aemon saying like no, obey me and stuff. But the whole time, yeah, she's just snapping away and like like I think there was a dozen times at least that she could have like clamped down or done like serious damage and they would be down.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, as much as Aemon is saying no, don't, and things like that, I mean, the dragon is feeding off of the hate that Aemon has too. So it is his fault as well. So, well, for the MVP of the episode, it was actually really hard. MVP and LVP both were kind of difficult for me. So I don't know. I'll get to mine shortly, but Kelsey, let's stick with you here. Who did you have as the MVP of the episode?
Man, I think there were so many MVPs in this episode because of all the little nuances from our boy Eric, who is Eric with an E, who was the MVP before, you know, coming and Eric coming down, you know, all of Daemon's scenes, except for -1. I mean, Rhaenyra, she was badass, but I would have to say Rhaenys for me in this episode. You can truly see her being that chess player behind the scenes, and she's the reason why the sea snake agrees to bend the knee for Rhaenyra. And you see, oh, it's kind of giving me chills. Like it's obviously they did this on purpose, and it's a little on the head per House of the Dragon, but you just see all these looks and like you see her observing a lot of observances between Rhaenyra, and it just reminds you of one of the first conversations that we see between Rhaenyra and Rhaenys, where she's like, this is never going to happen for you. Give it up. It should have happened for me and it didn't. And just seeing how she's truly seeing Rhaenyra for a true queen, and that she's level-headed and that she's trying to go into this. But otherwise, I would say like the CGI people, it was absolutely amazing CGI in this episode. A lot of great cinematography. And then that table was so cool. When they lit it up with the coals underneath, I was like, what is this? And then I saw how they're doing it. I'm like, that is badass. So Rhaenys and the table for me, the war table.
The table was incredible, and I need one for my house immediately.
Yes,
they got that in there just in time for the holiday season.
Yeah, no kidding.
Imagine that like in the backyard of your cabin or something. And that's like, instead of having a fire, you're just able to go around the table and just warm up your feet and have some s'mores.
All
And then,
my allies and my enemies.
yes, talk about war. Talk about what dragon your dragon's going to eat. It's marvelous.
It's funny
so
too, because
marvelous.
before they lit it up and it looked amazing. And I have some thoughts on that I'll get to later too. But the for opening scene of the episode was a close-up of the whole table and the map on it. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh yeah, that's where Stannis got it in with Melisandre on that table.
wow.
Oh, is that
yeah,
where?
Yeah, that's the smoke baby got.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, God damn, this show's fucked up. Kate, who was your MVP?
Well, I think it's pretty clear from my background today, but it was no question for me, Rhaenyra. She has been this entire series. I think she's incredible. This is a woman who lost her father, had a stillborn baby, and like a very difficult birth, and still manages to start talking about war strategy and start planning out, what she's going to do. And I think it would have been really easy. I get where Damon and all these other people that want to just like strike first and be like, fuck them, let's go get them. I understand that because I feel the same way. Like I hate the Greens, like I want to go get them. But I think Rhaenyra is really smart in just saying like, okay, wait 1 second, like let's figure out who's on our side. Like, how are we going to do this? We're going to, cut off the shipping lanes to King's Landing, and that's going to hopefully, help without some of this bloodshed. And I just like admire her so much for being able to do that and listen to kind of her gut and her intuition after she's been through this like super terrible experience.
Okay. Brad?
I mean, it might be the first time in the history of this podcast I'm in agreement with Kelsey. Aside from the CGI peeps, I will admit I did a 180 on Princess Rhaenys, and I said, from she went from literally, I think my LVP last week with her decision making to. And I want, if someone out there wants to go back and rewatch last week's podcast, or I go back into it, I'm pretty sure I said like maybe at some point she'll get to explain why she did what she did. And everyone was like, that's never gonna come up between her and Damon. She had that chance and she explained it in a way where I was like, okay, it's not her war to start. Like, I get that. She gave a justified excuse. And then to Kelsey's point, she got Corlys, to side with them. After, Corlys was like, let's just go off into the sunset, live the rest of our lives. And lastly, she's about to go secure like an important component to what Team Black will need moving forward against Team Green, and like blocking off like trade passages and stuff. So yeah, I thought she really, did a 180 from last week and went LVP to MVP.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. And I have, I'm right there with you two, not as much Kate on this one. But yeah, my MVPs, my number ones were the duo of Corlys and Rhaenys. I just think they're both great because they're flawed, but they have the most probably stable relationship out of anybody in this show. And so Corlys, first off, he basically came back to life. Everyone thought he was dead, and like, I mean, I thought he wasn't coming back. The way they talk about him, and he just kind of disappeared. He's obviously flawed. She's pissed off at him, but they're together and they talk things out. And he's like, you know what? You're right. Our pursuit of the Iron Throne is over. Let's just go back to Driftmark. We'll go to High Tide, and we're just going to chill. We're going to stay out of this. We're going to chill. We're going to retire. And she's like, well, actually, no, I don't think that anymore. And he's like, but this girl conspired in the death and blah, blah, blah. She poisons everything she touches. And he's like, well, that girl is the only reason that the realm is being stable right now. So it was just cool. And then he entered the room like a boss with a cane. And he's like, yeah, the High Tower treason can't stand. Pledges the full support of the fleet and of the Valyrian house to them. And kind of Rhaenyra knows that they didn't have to do that. And so I think that she kind of owes him a little bit, whether it's with a position or whatever. But so I think that both of them crushed it. Rhaenys was notable as well, with exactly like you said, Brad. And as soon as they had that conversation, what's his name? Damon's like, you could have, he usurped the throne. You could have killed all of them. And he was pissed. And she's like, you know, I knew a war is starting, but it's not my job to, you know, to land the first blow or whatever she said. So I don't know. She was cool.
Cop out.
Yeah, it was, but at least they talked about it. Like, because if they hadn't, it would have just been like, you know what I mean? It was exactly what we talked about last episode. So I'm glad that they addressed it at least. And she was still rocking her armor. And it was notable too when the crown gets placed on Rhaenyra's head and everyone bends the knee, and it was a cool moment. And then you see her kind of just smirking in the background, still standing, not bending the knee. And you just see her sizing up the situation, sizing up Rhaenyra. And it was nice to see the development of Rhaenys as a character, going from like, they're not going to accept you, you don't deserve this, to understanding like, you know, she's talented and she's smart and she deserves this. So I thought that was a cool thing. And my honorable mention was Sir Eric, just like you brought up, Kelsey, made his way to Dragonstone, joined the Blacks, stole the crown. And just like, what a cool moment. He did that. He's just dope. And Rhaenyra looked great with the crown on, and he already was playing a big role. He was the guy that announced to everyone, Lord Corlys Valyrian. I'm like, oh, he got a promotion already. That's good. And we also saw when they had the meeting, we saw Eric versus Eric. We saw the two of them for the first time as foes. That was kind of cool.
I did have flashbacks, Noah, to when we saw the Batman in theaters, and I remember the scene when like Alfred wakes up in the bed, and he like, and Bruce just like starts like chewing him out, and you like
roasting him,
and you're like, yo, like. I had flashbacks when Corlys like wakes up and like he sees his wife like sleeping, and he's like, oh, I've tortured men for sleeping on the watch, and she's like, yo, let's talk about our dead kids for a second. I was like, oh.
That's so true.
She was like, no.
That is such a good comparison too. And that scene was ridiculous in the Batman. Dude, Alfred is in a coma. He served you his entire life. He's in a coma because of you. And then he wakes up and he's so happy. Oh, Master Bruce, I'm so happy you're here. He's like, you fucked this up. Like, bro, give him a second.
Which, okay, well, maybe we should do, I think that gives me an idea. We should do a review of the Batman, because we didn't do one. I think it would be good, because emo.
Coming soon, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, coming soon. Emo Batman is not where it's at.
Yeah, no, it's not. But
oh yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, you reminded me of I really love the scene before that scene, which I don't love, but when Rhaenyra tells everyone to get out besides Daemon, she's like, everyone leave, and you see, and obviously purposely Rhaenys is the last one to go, and then she's like, you know, like doing her looks again, and then that's when she goes into Corlys. And also when Corlys says that, when he wakes up, he didn't say it like in a joking manner or anything like that. He's like, he's like, I've killed men for falling asleep on watch. You are no man. And like, just like doesn't smile or anything. I'd be like, bitch, okay, let's talk. You want to talk? You've been gone for 5 years. You just got yourself killed. Like, okay, let's talk. Like, so I am 100%. I would be Rhaenys too. I would have woke his ass up to have that conversation.
Did you think when they would like clear the room and Rhaenys kind of stayed, like, I was like, yo, is she really testing the situation? Like, she's just gonna stand there and then like, oh, me too. Oh, okay. Me. Like, I was like, is she trying to see if she could just get away with? No, we're the same. Like, clear the rooms means like them.
Like, these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
She's like the intern that thinks they're like way more important than they are.
If I don't move, they won't notice I'm still here. Well, that sounds like a perfect transition for talking about the LVP, the big loser of this episode. And obviously, I feel like, well, a lot of us are in a disagreement, but I'm very interested in Brad's LVP because he kind of teased it earlier. What do you got, Brad?
My LVP for this episode is fake news. And I think in this episode, you know, I'm waiting for everyone to bash on Aemon. And, you know, he's going to be some people's LVPs. But I really think this episode just shows, again, that when you're given like a lie, that myth can kind of become reality. And that's why we established in episode 1 when Viserys says, like, we don't control the dragons. It's an illusion. It's done to intimidate people. Aemon's not privy to this information. he doesn't know it. So he has no idea. Like at the time, like you're not 100% in control of the situation. Things can go awry. So I think it just shows like how a myth can become a reality, but at the same time, that doesn't make it truth. So that's why my LVP this week, if you go pick up your car from the mechanic and he says, "Hey, I fixed your brakes," and then your brakes go out 10 minutes later on your way home, that's not your fault. That's the mechanic's fault. So I just feel like Eamon's gonna end up getting the short end of the stick from all you guys, and I'm glad I got to kind of establish that early. Thank you, Noah.
What are you saying is
So-
fake news right now?
Yeah, what's the fake news?
The idea that Targaryens control their dragons.
I don't think any of them, I think they all know that they don't truly control them.
Well, and earlier in the season, King Viserys says it's an illusion that we think that we control the dragons.
But he says it only to his daughter. I don't think everyone knows that information. I don't think Daemon thinks it's an illusion. I think the rest of them really do believe that. I don't think that's something that's told to all Targaryens. I think they get a big swollen head of like, only we can do this. Like you kind of need that confidence to jump on the dragon. So I don't think they're told, "Oh yeah, that's all BS. Anyone could really do this," because that's going to make you like a lot more timid when approaching a dragon for the first time. I think they kind of need to be told that lie in some senses. I think he just opened up to his daughter and like told her like, "Hey, that's all BS. Like we're not really in control. We just need to pretend that's the case so we can intimidate all these other people." Just like politicians, in a sense, they're not really in control. Like people are in control, but politicians have to convince us like they're the ones who make all the decision and we vote for them so they can make decisions for us. So I think Targaryens are just like playing everybody, but they also play themselves.
That
I
was
think that's
quite the
a
hot
huge
take.
stretch.
None of us know what you're talking about right now.
Someone out
Please.
there listening is nodding their head like, yes, he gets it.
Some sound off in the comments if what he just said makes any sense to
Please.
you. If you're listening to this, Kelsey, LVP, who you got?
I got Brad for my right now. After making us listen to that rant, I don't know what cough medicine you're on right now, Brad, but no, I can kind of see where you're going, but it's a stretch in my mind. It's hard for me because I think in some cases, so I would say my LVP, besides Aemond, I mean, I think I made my position clear on Aemond's actions this episode. So obviously Aemond is number one. I already talked about that. But for me, kind of, it's not necessarily Rhaenyra herself, but I go really back and forth on the portrayal that Emma D'Arcy has of Rhaenyra. I think it's very weak in a lot of ways. I don't know. There's just something about the way that she portrays her that she doesn't have this like stature about her almost. You see almost like she seems very timid in a lot of ways, even in her delivery to Daemon after he chokes her, which actually, you know what? No, that's my LVP is that scene because that doesn't make any sense to me. But after he chokes her and she's talking about the Song of Ice and Fire and like Viserys telling her and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't know?" Ha ha ha. Like, and it's just like it wasn't. I don't know. I guess I just don't fully agree with all the ways that she portrays this character or that they portray this character. So for me, that's probably like it's a weak LVP, but that's one. But obviously, yeah, that scene where Daemon chokes Rhaenyra, I think that is so out of character and weird that it just really threw me off.
I have a lot of thoughts on that scene in particular, and it really was just confusing to me, and that's one of the big questions that I wanted to pose to you guys is how do you explain their relationship? Because up to this point, I really thought that as much as Daemon is a super chaotic character and he's a wild card and he, will fly off the handle and do some crazy shit, like he was nothing but loyal to Rhaenyra up to this point. They're kind of kindred spirits. They have this unspoken bond where like, with the scene with Vaemond in the last episode or two episodes ago, he kind of looks at her for approval. She nods and then he slices his head off. I mean, they have that bond. And so seemed really uncharacteristic that he choked her. And I still don't quite understand why? I mean, I know he wants to go to war and she's holding back, but like that, so you're going to physically abuse I was confused about that. Kate, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hated that scene, first of all, because like I love Damon and I still continue to love him, but only because I think that was such a weird scene that I agree with you guys. It didn't make any sense based on like how their relationship has been. Like they've had this relationship literally since episode 1 of this kind of mutual respect, I feel like. And I feel like Damon has always been like, yeah, like you are the heir. And after the first like 1 or 2 episodes, like I thought maybe he wanted the throne, but since then, like I have not thought that once. Like I think he's been like, yep, it's you, and like I'm here to, you know, support you and, you know, kind of whisper in your ear on some things, of course. But yeah, I just thought that scene did not make any sense considering what we've seen so far.
I disagree. I know it's a big shocker.
Fake news.
Please explain that, Brad.
I don't think it was that out of character for him. I think it's like an old habit. I mean, like Corliss had literally just said when he was going through, like, I'm not like justifying what he did. It's fucked up and it's wrong and he shouldn't have done it. But I wasn't like, yo, how weird. Like Corliss said, when he was dealing with personal tragedy, he went about things the way he knew how. He went to war at the sea. That's what he does. I think Damon, like, yeah, he was a little bit more measured when, you know, dude is like calling these kids bastards, but those aren't his kids. So it's a little bit easier to like look at his girl and be like, hey, do I have your approval right now? And I still think he has that respect. I don't think he's after the throne, but he just lost, you know, like that was his child also that he just lost due to the stress of the situation. So he's also mourning in a sense. And I think he's retreating to what he knows best of, I escape my sadness by fighting people and fucking people up. And I think he feels like right now the queen is taking that away from him and he's acting like a spoiled little brat again, which used to be his go-to for a long time of, you're not letting me get my way. This is how I deal with like my grieving. Let me do this.
I mean,
I actually think that's a pretty good point. Go ahead, Kels.
I was just going to say there were so many opportunities to portray him in a way that would make him go towards domestic violence. Yes, he's a violent man. I'm not taking that away, but he's violent in the sense of like, you know, war, like you were saying, or like when there's disrespect and it's called on. There's so many opportunities, like when he's in the whorehouses, when he's dealing with all these things of like showing him as being violent towards his women. And I don't see it. And we've also seen that there's a lot of deleted scenes, you know, after his second wife is Dracarys. She Dracarys herself, you know, of like him hugging his daughters and things like that. So I don't know. I don't see it. Like if it was Aegon, yeah, I'd be like, okay, yeah, he was gonna choke the shit out of her. But I don't know. I don't see it. Obviously, yes, he killed his first wife, but I think that was more of like out of opportunity because he's also an opportunist, didn't love her, didn't respect her, didn't want to be in that marriage. So he just saw an opportunity to get out of it. Yeah, he's a flawed character and all that. And also it was so, it also was very to me, it was very pointless. It didn't have any type, like it wasn't showing it because then afterwards they're together and he's the one that delivers the message about Lucerys too. So it seemed just very almost biased from like a screenwriter perspective to me.
It's almost like, you know, where they don't want us as viewers to be liking Damon as much as everyone is. So they're like, okay, we have to show something that makes him, you know, a little bit more unlikable completely. But Kelsey, I completely agree with you about her response to it and how weird that was, because we've seen a similar type scene in different movies or TV shows before where someone's getting, you know, maybe physically dominated, but then they cut the other person deep and like they get the last laugh by some comment, like either insulting the person's masculinity or something else like that kind of, you know, makes them really feel ashamed. In this, I feel like that's what they were going for, but talking about the Song of Ice and Fire, which Damon didn't even know what she was talking about. And she's like, oh, he didn't tell you, like thinking that was some burn. And then it's just like, that wasn't, I don't know. I thought that was really lackluster.
Felt really flat. I feel like
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, yeah, and it only proved Damon's point. He's like, you're right. Like, he didn't know what she was talking about, but for her defense, to him saying, "Yo, he used to have all these crazy fantasies and weird ass dreams," and be like, "Oh, but he didn't tell you about this dream."
This
Oh,
one that also sounds crazy.
Yeah, I'm
He's like, oh no, the darkness in the north. He's like, what the fuck darkness in the
Yeah.
north are you talking about?
like, you're not, like,
bitch, tell me.
proving it wrong.
It almost reminds me of like suppose like a serious version of like Homer choking Bart. Like when he just gets frustrated, it's like, shut up, boy, and like whatever. It's just yeah, I don't know, that whole scene, it just, I don't know, it just didn't do anything for me. Yeah.
Do you guys think Rhaenyra looks at him differently now?
After
I
the
think
choking
I
or
would.
what?
Yeah. Do you think that open, like, oh my God, like this dude, like, do you think she at all like is like, yo, like my husband's like kind of a psycho, or yo, my husband really has the power over me? Like, do you think, 10 minutes, like not 10 minutes, but like, 2 episodes from now, is that like a scene that doesn't really like matter or play like a major impact, or like does that change her view of him?
I think it shows the cracks in the foundation where we all thought they had such a great relationship. And I think that maybe it's not, maybe there's going to be more to it of just like either him being a bad husband or just like really kind of a splitting of the two of them, maybe a little bit. But maybe I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, I think it should change her opinion and it should matter to her, but I think, I don't know, it just felt like a throwaway scene. So I don't know that it's really going to change anything or like even be a thing that we remember in season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you're right, to be honest. I hope it is just a throwaway scene so I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
I agree, Kate, because yeah, it does seem like such a throwaway, especially because they make him be the person that delivers the news about Luke, like we mentioned. So I feel like that's going to be overshadowing. And I mean, think about their relationship growing up too, when Rhaenyra was so young. He, in my opinion, did a lot worse shit to her when she was young. Like, he abandoned her and like did all this stuff to her and like really
Manipulative stuff.
Yeah, really manipulated her. So obviously we know that this is a toxic thing, even though we all ship it. We know it's toxic. It's like the Joker and Harley Quinn, right? But except if they were uncle and niece. But yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine that being a thing. But it being House of the Dragon, I'm sure they'll mention it 20 million times. Like,
yeah.
I remember when you choked the thing, that the necklace that you give me lays upon, and you'll be like, okay.
I forgot about that.
Well, Rhaenyra, aside from being choked by her husband, she lost her dad, she lost her baby, she lost her other son, she found out her throne got usurped, and she found out that the Greens are coming for her and her family. So Rhaenyra was my LVP. Kate, I know you have her as your MVP. So who was your biggest loser of the episode?
So mine was Otto, because he got absolutely ate by Damon, and I wrote these quotes down and I'm so excited to say them because they were so
Love it.
good. All right. So he says, I would rather feed my sons to the dragons than have them carry shields and cups for your drunk usurper cunt of a king. Great.
It was great. That was chef kiss for sure.
Yes. And then when Rhaenyra's like, I'll think about it and give you an answer, which was kind of weird to me, but I feel like that's strategy. He says she can have her answer now, stuffed in her father's mouth along with his withered cock. I was dying.
Yeah, and then Rhaenyra went up to him, plucked his little hand of the king badge or pin off, threw it in the water or whatever. It was like, you fucking traitor. Like,
he's such, well, I hate him also. So like, I was like rooting for them to just like fuck him up. And they kind of did with words and throwing away his little pin.
Wait, you just sparked something in my head. So Otto and company is most likely still there, right?
Thank you. That's what I said to Kate. I was like, yo, I said one of two things either happens. I said, word is going to get back to the queen about what happened to her son, and she has Otto and them there at Dragonstone already, or somehow word gets to Otto first, and he tells his guys, "Hey, we got to get out of here before like they find out about this." Kate was saying like she doesn't think they're there, and I'm like, well,
I
they said
don't
they were
either.
gonna have-
I figured they just got on a boat and sailed right home.
She
But
said you'll have an answer on the morrow.
Right. So I was thinking they spent the night. Maybe they made up the guest rooms, said like, come on in.
Oh, I just assumed they'd send a raven over there, and
Yeah,
That's
same.
what Kate said. I don't think so. I don't think things work like that. If you're like, I'll have
I
an
don't
answer
know.
tomorrow, like it's guest rights. Like
but isn't
supposedly,
no, but isn't the morrow like? Oh no, that's a fortnight. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know.
like
I
if
would
they're
guess
welcomed
tomorrow.
in,
Yeah, tomorrow.
she'll have an. I mean, they went there not expecting war. Like Otto went there, like I'm sure not expecting to die. So I'm sure he went there under guest rights, thinking like, oh, this will be okay. Just like same with Luke, So like, I think they're there. They might not be literally there, like in the castle or whatever, but I don't think they went all the way back to King's Landing to await an answer that's going to take a few days to get to them when they can have their answer in the morning and then go home and deliver it.
Yeah.
Maybe
But now-
they're
but
just
yeah.
like on the ship.
Yeah, I mean, but
So-
now truly, I guess we'll see what they decide to do with it. But yeah, I was thinking that, and I was like, okay, well now Otto is probably either going to get got by Daemon or it's going to be a tool. But when Rhaenyra comes around on the dragon again, like obviously it's badass, but it's like how many? It's just I just feel like things are so repetitive in this show, and also their bitch
by
asses
design.
this.
Yeah, it was a callback.
Yeah, that's
So
by
you
like
know.
well, because before she was on the opposite side, so it was like
Ah.
she came in against with
Daemon.
Otto essentially, not
Yeah.
really, but kinda against Damon, and now she's doing the same thing again.
Yeah, I guess. That makes sense. But also like the second that they were there, and especially the second that they drew swords and shit, I would make them my prisoner. Like I'm not drawing blood, but you guys are gonna be prisoner until I decide, or like just for a little bit or whatever happens. I don't know. This whole thing just nothing makes sense to me in the show.
Well, I think
Well,
that it's but I think it does make sense because Rhaenyra said the whole time, if this war is going to start, I'm not going to be the one to draw first blood. She said she's not going to make a move, and by arresting and keeping the hand of the king as a prisoner, then that is basically drawing. I mean, that is starting the war, and that's exactly what she said she wasn't going to do.
Not necessarily a prisoner like for forever, but like I would be like, yo, making sure that they're in somewhere that they can't get out, kind of like they did with Rhaenys, like until she makes her decision, so some weird shit doesn't happen. So like to
But there's
Kate's
a
point,
different-
like what if they leave and Lucerys is
We're
dead
looking
now?
at this as like a post-Red Wedding world, but in their world, this is like pre-Red Wedding. I don't know if there's any precedence for like guest rights ever having been broken up until this point, and you probably always think like, well, I'm a guest, so like I'm good. I'm 90% like gonna be okay. Like I don't
But
think
that doesn't
Otto-
apply here. The guest rights is like if you let someone in under your roof and share like food and
But,
drink
like,
with them, like
messenger,
them
I mean.
showing up outside on their front lawn is not really a guest right thing.
He was giving them terms. Like he was like,
Yeah, it was like a
"Yo, this
message.
is what's gonna
Right, it was like
happen."
he was
Okay,
a
so-
messenger. You're not
Gotcha,
supposed to
yeah.
kill like a messenger delivering. Like, I mean, that's a crazy situation for Otto to put himself in otherwise. And he seemed pretty confident, not scared. So I'm thinking he thinks he kind of has that in his back pocket of like, because why would he go? Like, that's a really ballsy move for him to go. Like, everyone knows like this was more his move to make, to usurp them versus like Allison's.
Mhm.
So like for him to go would be a really gutsy move unless he felt like he had that to fall back on.
Well, I think that, we talked about the choking scene, which was tough to watch, but there were some other parts of this episode that were tough to watch as well. So, Kate, why don't we start with you? Why don't you talk a little bit about your cringe moment of this episode?
Well, actually, we already did because the choking scene was my
Was
cringe
it?
moment. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you have that too, Kels?
I haven't really thought about it. Go to Brad and I'll ponder.
Do you have that too, Brad?
No, I actually have it. My cringe moment is, and this led down a rabbit hole that I did not see coming for me today, was there was a moment in yesterday's episode where they reference Lord Paramount Grover Tully. And when that happened, I literally laughed out loud. Kate looked over and said, "Why is that funny?" And I said, "Why would you name a fictional character Grover? Because I'm literally only going to think about Sesame Street now."
It's a name. It's a name. People are
And
named
then-
Grover.
named
Grover Cleveland. He was a
Yeah,
former
look,
president.
other than the president who like got stuck in the bathtub, like
I can't wait for all the Grovers of the world to stop listening to us now.
Look,
We are
They're gonna be.
so-
You are angering. You're
Don't
poking the
leave
bear.
us,
Brad.
Grovers.
let's go to. I'll go to war against the Grovers. And
Wow.
I also said no, and I also said it's a fictional. You don't name a fictional character that. I'm not saying that name is like there's anything wrong with that name, like in real life. My argument more is like, yo, there's one fictional character named Grover. Everyone's gonna think of Sesame Street. But then I learned per Emergency Awesome, and I've seen like others report on this too, but like in Emergency Awesome's video today, he talks about how there's an entire like branch of the Tullys all named after Muppets because George R. Martin's a big Muppets fan. So there's an Elmo Tully, a Kermit Tully, all in that family. So I was right in making the assumption that there's no way any fictional author names a character Grover
Is
unless
there a-
you do this Sesame Street character.
Is there a Snuffleupagus Tully?
That's
Like,
the
I'm trying to
dragon.
think of other fictional names.
Snuffy
Like, yo,
Tully.
that's just, can you ever see another fictional character in any other universe ever being named like, Daenerys? Like, no, it's so established. Like, that name's kind of spoken for in fiction.
Grover is an actual name, Brad. Like that is not so out of. If it was Big Bird or Snuffleupagus, like, my mind would go there.
God,
Like-
every one of your answers today have been so weird. What
You are a
is
weirdo.
wrong with you?
Can anyone else name a fictional Grover?
Okay, but why was that your cringe moment?
Oh, it was cringe learning later on that there's an entire Sesame Street branch of like Game of
Yo.
Thrones lore, all named after Sesame Street characters. That's
First of all,
weird.
Sesame Street is the shit. A lot of
Okay.
kids
Oh,
have been
yeah.
helped because of Sesame Street.
Oscar
No, I
the
love
Grouch.
Sesame Street. I also love The Simpsons. I would want there to be a family in the Game of Thrones lore where they're named Homer, Marge, and Bart.
Again, actual names.
Yeah,
Brad,
Oscar the Grouch Baratheon was my favorite character.
I thought of that when I was like, who's next? Like, is Oscar gonna welcome them at the door when they arrive? Like,
That
are they
actually
really
sounds like a
gonna-
name that could be in the show, though.
Yeah.
Are they gonna do this as an episode next year when he goes? Who was it that got sent? Jacaerys? He's the one that's sent to go speak with them. So I'm like, yo, is there literally gonna be an episode where he's walking around this castle and they're like, yo, you've met Cookie Monster, our chef.
Brad, I just
Okay.
Okay.
Well, my cringe moment easily was the childbirth scene.
oh
Uh,
tough.
What's
How
have we
many childbirth scenes are we gonna have?
Have
that
we
are like
seen
this?
more dragons this
Wait.
season or terrible, disgusting childbirth scenes this season? Good
I
God.
think childbirth.
Everything I wrote in my notes, all caps, like, ugh, like, get out of here. Like, she's yelling, get out. Like,
She's
ugh.
like
Her,
she pulls it out of her vagina.
dude. And the head was all that was disgusting. The only thing I thought was funny about the situation was you see they're all very sad and they have a little funeral for this baby and they have a little like baby-sized funeral pyre, and I'm like, I wonder if they had did they have the dragon Dracarys, that like little baby? Like, I'm
They
thinking
had to have.
They
it's like the
probably did,
smallest
yeah.
dragon.
They did that in when the other baby passed in one of the episodes. They did that, but
In
they
in
showed
episode
it.
1.
And
They
the
did,
mom,
exactly.
too, yeah.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't show the dragon, but but also the way they shot it, I thought was weird. Like, they kept cutting between Rhaenyra's face in pain and her screaming, and then her dragon Cyrax like roaring, and I'm like, I didn't understand why they were doing that. That didn't make any sense to me.
it's the connection between the rider and the dragon.
Okay, I like
it's
that.
showing that they have such a strong connection that the dragon is feeling that
pain
she's
too.
in such pain.
Yeah.
But they did. Vhagar was sleeping like she had never slept before in her life. Wasn't she sleeping when?
Well, she was just like chilling on the beach. She's like,
Yeah, she was just hanging
just
out,
dipping her toes in the water.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
a big thing about proximity. Like, I don't know if this answers your question, Kelsey, but there is a big thing about proximity being important. Like, like, let's say, for example, like Drogon, he's not connected with Daenerys, like when he's at a distance. So, like, let's say when he comes and saves her from the stadium, that was him just coming. But like, the scene when I forget, I think they're at Slaver's Bay and she ends up like beheading those people, or she has like Grey Worm behead those people. Like, Drogon knows to come in because she wants for him to intimidate them. So when the dragon's close, it senses your emotions more. But when you're further away, like that, like link, that's why they pet the dragon and like look at them close, because they're like feeling that psychic bond. But the further and further away they get, like, that's lost.
Well, just like you see that with Daemon and Caraxes in this one, where he's like threatening the two Kingsguard guys, and like he didn't even have to motion or signal or anything. Like, Caraxes knew exactly when to come in, and with his long, weird freaking neck.
That was amazing. That shot, I fucking love that.
Which did they die? They won't see them again.
No, they did what was right. But why was he suspicious of them? I didn't even get that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think maybe he's just like, he needs to test everyone to make sure they're loyal, kind of thing.
He was trying to teach Jacaerys a lesson, but even then, it was really, I don't know, it was really weird.
It was weird. He was trying to flex, but it was weird.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, I'll jump in then. No one has mentioned the weird all-employee meeting that like Daemon was leading at the time of this like horrific childbirth taking place, and all of the people like look at him like, yo, you want to take 5, like, as she's screaming, and he just keeps going. They're like, yo, do you want to go see how she's
like, you want to check on her? You want to just
like, and Daemon just keeps on like running through his shit. Like, that was another thing that like added into that, just made things like even more cringe of like, he's really like gone off the deep end.
What I thought was,
he's already been through one super traumatic birth and lost a wife to it. So he's probably like really nervous. And like, he also thinks he's going to get attacked by the Greens. So he's just trying to set up a plan and figure it out.
I like what you said too, Brad. When you said, Brad, that's like when he is experiencing trauma, like that's how he deals with it, and so like it just kind of blocks everything else out. He goes into that zone, and actually I like that. It makes his actions make a little bit more sense when you put it in that kind of framework. One thing I thought was weird also was in the beginning, Rhaenys comes and tells them that Viserys is dead and all this, and Daemon's like, how did Viserys die? It's like, how did he? The fuck are you asking for? You saw him 2 days ago, and he looked like a fucking skeleton. It was like, what?
Yeah.
Is it really that far fetched that he had to be carried out in the chair? And he's like, like, you really can't. Oh, he had to have gotten murdered.
Maybe he was just trying to. Maybe he was just trying to sow the seeds of like, yo, we cannot, like, we can't trust these people. Like, clearly. Well, okay, but someone else asked that too. I think the guy that got at King's Landing, where Sir Kristen made him sit down. Like, he also said, like, oh my gosh, hold on. Oh, my puppy's about to fall off the couch. Oh my god, so funny. Sorry, that's the second reference to my puppy. He's like on his back, like rolling like this very slowly towards the edge. Very cute. So sorry, listeners.
And what's
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I mean, truly, Alicent being there and then saying Aegon had these last wishes, and then, he just died. And then now, I think truly for Daemon, it's him just trying to build the foundation of like why they need to go to war against them.
Okay. And what is it that Daemon is doing with the dragons? because they're obviously setting this up for the future. But we saw him a previous episode. He's collecting the dragon eggs. He mentions in this one that he basically has like a dragon incubator that they're just like chilling in. He goes to find Vermithor, which is that huge dragon that we saw. It's Vermithor is the second largest and second oldest living dragon, second only to Vhagar. And he's singing to him in High Valyrian, and it's the dragon's put on a light show. Like, Daemon is bonded with Caraxes, so he can't bond with Vermithor. And so I get trying to recruit these dragons to their side, and it's important that the war to come, they need to have this big advantage. But he calls it as 13-4, the dragons the black side has over the green side. Obviously, that becomes 12, well, potentially, now that Arax and Lucerys is dead. But he says we have Syrax, that's Rhaenyra's, Caraxes, that's Daemon, Maelys, that's Rhaenys's. Your sons have Vermax, that's Jace's, Arax, that's Luke, but dead, and Tyraxes for Joffrey, I guess. Baela has one too, but then there's also unclaimed dragons, the one that belonged to Rhaenyra, that's Sea Smoke, who still resides on Driftmark. Vermithor, we're just talking about, and then Silverwing, and then there's 3 other wild ones. So I know he's going to go out and try to get all of these, but I don't think there's dragon riders enough for all that. But I mean, it definitely looks like the advantage is significant for the blacks over the greens in terms of the dragons that they have. But like, I don't know. What is he? Do you guys have any guesses on what he's doing?
Well, they have dragon riders that don't have a dragon.
Like who?
Well, what's her name that had her dragon stole?
What, Rhaena?
Now also lost her fiance.
Yeah, man, that girl's also taken. She could be the LVP also.
Yeah,
that's
she took some
Rhaena.
L,
Yeah, but hopefully she comes back as a bad bitch. And
yeah, no kidding.
But she's a dragon, like a potential dragon rider without a dragon. So I know right offhand they have her, and I don't know if there's anyone else that maybe we haven't thought. I mean, isn't there another kid that they just haven't shown in the show yet? But that might be on Team Green.
Aegon.
There's another son on Team Green that they didn't show. But
I was gonna say maybe there's someone else that we just don't know about because they haven't been like a main character. Like, they're 3 years old right now, but eventually
we have Rhaenyra and Daemon's 2 kids, but they're like infants. So
Right.
I think he's just building. I think he's just building a dragon army. I think maybe he's been anticipating this happening from the Greens since the beginning because Otto's a little bitch. So he's just been like, all right, well, I'm going to try. And clearly he's not dead. So that dragon, I don't know if you can claim multiple dragons like you were saying, like that you can't. But I mean, maybe.
Yeah, you don't think Daenerys
not
could
dead,
have rode her other dragons?
I think she is a exception to this, but I think typically like you have a bond. It's the same reason that a dragon doesn't get another rider until you're dead. So I think that's why potentially why they don't really mention what Sea Smoke and why Sea Smoke hasn't gotten another rider. You'd think that being Laenor's, I guess. So hold on, Laenor's uncle or niece would be Rhaena and Baela, right? So you'd think one of them would try to just go bond with that because they think that he's dead, but they don't. So I think that's part of the thing. So the dragon doesn't bond with another rider until the rider's dead, and it's kind of a match thing. Anyway,
I didn't think about that because I was like, oh yeah, obviously he's going to get the biggest dragon that's available, but I didn't think about how he already has one.
Yeah, because I think then theoretically someone could just go bond with all of them and like literally just run shit by themselves because you have a whole army of all the dragons.
That'd be so cool.
Maybe that's what's happening.
What'd you say, Brad?
Could Daemon be trying to upgrade?
Mate, I mean,
maybe he feels in my mind, look, I need someone bigger and badder, and I'll pass my dragon off to someone else. Like, I mean, he's clearly not thinking that clearly in this episode. Like,
if I was Caraxes and he did that to me, I would Dracarys him immediately. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's not going to go well for him, but he's not a guy in like the right set of mind right now. He's thinking, he's got red in his eyes. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was his like motive of going down there and being like, all right, I need someone that's going to match their dragon, so let's do this.
Okay.
Hell hath no fury like a Kate dragon. You're like, I'm gonna Dracarys the shit out of him.
I would be so mad.
So
why are you confused, Noah?
No, I'm thinking about my next question, how to phrase this. So switching gears to the relationship between the two key women in this show, Alicent and Rhaenyra. There's the scene where we already talked about, when Otto comes and brings the terms, but then he also gives a piece of paper to Rhaenyra as a gesture from Alicent that, the friendship is still alive and they have potential and all that. And it's just the torn page is a callback from a previous episode where they had a book and whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm curious what your take is on their relationship. Do you think this was a genuine gesture from Alicent? Do you think that she knows what she's doing and it's kind of just toying with her or trying to, hope that Rhaenyra doesn't, start a war with her, or she just kind of takes the L here? What do you think about this? Or was it a manipulative tactic?
At this point, it's manipulation purely. They moved so quick to confirm Aegon and did all the stuff that they did that at this point there's no hope of them trying to do that. Anything that she's doing is anything other than pure manipulation and her trying to call back to their childhood and their first love as best friends.
But this comes back to a question from last episode where do you think that Alicent really believes that Viserys's dying wish was to crown Aegon, or do you think it was a way to just make sure that her kids have the power and it's all about an ambition and it's all about a power grab?
I mean,
because this ties together with that.
Why do you assume Alicent is the one who really delivered that page?
Well, because she'd be the only one that would have it or know the meaning.
You don't think Otto could have taken that years and years ago and be like, yo, this could be potential leverage one day? And
I don't
paper from a book. No.
I don't really see him and Alicent having those types of conversations of hey, this is what I did with my friend in the yard.
No. But I mean, if she always kept that piece of paper and he knew oh, this means something in there. He didn't say hey, she kept, she said to tell you this and told them some secret. She was oh, she always hoped you could rekindle. He might have just found that in her room knowing
But he would have no context of what it meant. He would have, it's just a piece of paper to him.
But it's from the book that they used to study between. That was her job, is to help her study using that book. So if she had one torn piece of paper out from that book from 15 years ago, that obviously meant something to both of them.
Brad, you can't even remember the characters' names and you got down a rabbit hole of Grover. I don't think that this man who is just purely about furthering the name of Hightower would pay any type of attention. Plus he was gone for all those years. Remember, he was gone from the Red Keep and stuff like that. He was banished. So how would he know that?
2 years ago, he might have taken that piece of, when he got back, he might have taken that piece of paper and been oh, this is clearly some kind of weird friendship thing between them. I'm going to use it. I'm going to keep this. And one day, maybe it'll come to my benefit.
Are you throwing out a theory here? Or do you actually believe that?
I didn't think of it until you were saying it. I obviously first time watching it was right away oh, this thing kept that. How much? I mean, but then when you said it right there, I was shit, we don't know. We never heard Alicent say, hey, take this piece of paper. She'll know what I mean. We don't know that. We're just assuming that's because what we're told. Otto is so manipulative that I wouldn't put it past him to use that bond between the two of them, being I'm going to play this to my advantage. Anyone in Game of Thrones who's manipulative would think that's clearly to do that.
Well, but I think the thing is that
to do with the dagger.
Well, whether it's Otto giving that paper or Alicent, I mean, the goal is the same. It doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, and clearly it works. Yeah. Rhaenyra's side was all ready to be yo, fuck you for all this stuff. And then that stops her in her tracks and is okay, I'll talk to you about this. I'll sleep on this.
Well, Rhaenyra says, I do not wish to rule over a kingdom of ash and bone, which echoes what Daenerys says, or I don't want to be a queen of the ashes. And she's being smart because she's is my role as the queen to take power for myself at all costs, or is it to make sure that the kingdom thrives and everyone is safe and all these things? And so she's and so she really thinks maybe it will be the best idea for me to just retreat to Dragonstone. We'll make a deal and no one has to die over this. Obviously that's not going to happen now, but I don't know. I think that I go back and forth, but I think that this whole thing has really just kind of gotten away from both Rhaenyra and Alicent, where things are happening that they couldn't control and that they probably didn't want. And we saw it, what, 2 episodes ago at the dinner where they kind of rekindle and they apologize to each other. And she's like, no, like, come back. We need to spend time together. And I really did believe at the time that they both wanted that. And even now, I think they do still have love for each other as much as, you know, now there's no coming back from what's been done, both with crowning Aegon and especially now with what happened to Luke. But I don't think these things are wanted to have happened by either side. So I do kind of believe that the gesture was a true one with the page, as stupid as it was.
I don't know. I think this is another ploy. I talked about it last week, but I think this is another ploy to try to do anything to save her sons. And she knows that they're in danger now. And I mean, the terms that Otto comes, I mean, well, yeah, they're literally like demands, like, you're going to do this and then we'll like let you live, which I don't even know if that's true. We don't even know if these terms are true, really, because Otto is hellbent on killing anyone that is in Aegon's way. But
is
I don't
that
know, I
any
guess we'll see.
different than what the Targaryens did to the Baratheons? Like, I thought Baratheon brought up a good point when he was like, yo, they came here with like a wife for my kids. They brought this. You come in here being like, well, you said you were going to do this and now you have to. Like,
I think it's different coming from a usurper trying to basically throw a coup versus someone reminding you like, hey, like, you pledged to me, we have history, like, I would love for us to like be able to work together further or whatever. But I agree, like, I mean, but like I said, we don't know what's on that paper. Maybe it just wasn't, maybe he just was like, nah, whatever. Maybe the maester fucked up and said some weird shit because he doesn't want to go with the Targaryens. Who knows? Like, you know what I mean? That's
yeah.
Who knows?
But I mean, history is written by the victors, right? So I think that if Aegon ends up winning this war and Rhaenyra and her side dies, the blacks die, the greens survive, then like, that's like, he's not a usurper. You know, he has the conqueror's crown, he has the conqueror's sword, he has the name, he, you know, all these things. He's the firstborn male of the previous
Otto
king.
ran through it well.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all perspective. Like, anyone could say anyone's, you know, usurper. Like, it really, you could, you know, and that's what makes the show good. It really, you know, is it this person that the king said? And yeah, I did think Otto, the one thing that did bug me in this episode was when Otto says something like, Rhaenyra is running through all the things about like, you know, this and that, and Otto's running through, yo, he's got this, like, and then he goes, at the time when your father named you queen, he hadn't had a firstborn son yet. But he repeated that again after he had a firstborn son, which kind of made me mad. Like, I'm like, that's kind of a BS one right there, to be like, at the time he named you queen, he hadn't had a firstborn son. I'm like, he went up to the throne again after having a boy and said like, yo, nothing's changed. She's still the queen. So I don't get why that was brought up.
Yeah, but Daemon, in that same scene, Daemon calls it out like, yeah, and who did the king say was his heir? And it was kind of like a Cersei line where it's like, you think a piece of paper is gonna save you? And he says, like, you think that the dying words of, or the words of a dying king matter now? My side has this. So he basically acknowledged that it doesn't fucking matter what he wanted.
Okay. As long as like brought up, like, you know, I was like, wait, that could be like proven wrong real quick. And there were a lot of witnesses to that. So if you're going by based on like, well, that was before he had a firstborn son. Like, there's a lot of people that were like, no, he announced it again.
Yeah. Did you catch that when they announced that a ship is coming there with, obviously it had Otto and stuff on it, and whoever the Kingsguard guy tells them, he said that it has it's flying a banner of a green 3-headed dragon. So they have a new like Targaryen sigil with the green on there, which I thought was a cool little, I would have liked to have seen that, but I thought that was a little cool addition.
Yeah, it's kind of like the inverted, well, I don't know, like, you know, when Jon Snow took over Winterfell, like they did the inverted like Stark banner. I love when they play with the, like, you know, like, this is the sigil, but this is what our like touch on it and stuff like that.
Well, and so that's what Joffrey did too, where they kind of merged the Baratheon and the Lannister stuff together a little bit. Well, what else? You guys have anything else from this episode that you want to talk about?
I mean, we already talked about it briefly, but that Bible scene was so stupid. It was so dumb.
It
I
is
just
true.
can't go without saying it. And two, Rhaenyra doesn't seem that like religious or anything. So, and there was no talk of like the seven from that side of the family. So it was just
Do you
very out
think
of
it was
place.
to give them more courage than
No, I
they
think
had
she-
in the moment?
No, it was
I
just weird.
think- Yeah, she's lied to her kids so many times. Or well, no, she hasn't. She doesn't lie to them. I
But
guess
she
she
knows,
likes
like,
half
you
truths,
know,
but-
like Luke is like shitting himself, and like she needs to like give him some confidence and be like, no fighting. I'm not saying it was a smart move. I'm not saying that at all. But do you think that's why she did it? Like, I need to make them feel like deep down, like you are a warrior, but I need you to be cool right now.
You know,
Like,
we all
you
know you'd be fully capable if you wanted to
Yeah,
fight, but I'm asking
Yeah,
you.
I know you want to go in there and whoop some ass, but I need you to be cool.
I'm not buying that.
I'm not
Uh-huh.
either, but it's funny to think about.
I know you guys can do some MMA dragon shit right now, but please, for the sake of the
Just
realm.
for once in your life, don't whoop ass.
I know we just showed a scene of you getting your ass whooped on the beach by your brother, but please, for the love of
Oh
God.
yeah, I forgot about that scene too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you guys have for this one?
No, I'm so sad that we have to wait 2 years.
Me
Oh my
too. It
God,
is
it's
very
so
depressing. We take it for granted so much when we have these episodes and where we get rolling through the season. I've loved being able to talk and recap it all with you and laugh and just talk about our theories and stuff. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate everybody that's watched and listened as well for allowing us to do this. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. However, we are not done talking season 1 of House of the Dragon. We will be back next week to recap the full season and give out our season-long awards. Make sure to subscribe. You will be notified when that episode drops. And as a reminder, you can go back and listen to all these breakdowns of each of the 10 previous episodes of House of the Dragon. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all other podcasting platforms you listen to. So once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And to all of our subscribers in New Zealand, kia ora.
Shout out to all you real life Grovers out there.
Snuffleupagus out.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.